tuned into Breaking the Mask of Depression with your host, Diva with Depression.
Hey guys, how's it going? I know it's been a couple of episodes since I've recorded, but life has been going on. I hope everyone is doing well. We're still in turmoil in this world, and we just have to keep checking in with each other. But I am going to get right into tonight's episode because I don't want to keep you here all night, and this is something that I can talk about forever. What the hell is narcissism? What is it? And that's a big question. It's a major topic in today's world, and I don't think that it's something that we talk about enough because a lot of us don't know what it is. And so, one day, of course, I was online and I saw someone say that they're tired of hearing the word narcissist. They're tired of hearing the word narcissism, and they think that it's become a catchphrase, a buzzword. And that may be true. That may be true. I know that in a lot of cases and things that you read nowadays, toxicity and narcissism and, different words like that have been thrown around. And, sometimes it's just a matter of, we can't come up with the right word, or we know that it's a negative term, so that's what we throw in. However, narcissism is important. Narcissism is a critical term to know. The characteristics, are essential for people to know, especially people that are living in situations of domestic violence, parental abuse, people with mental illness that have lived under the roof of narcissism. And so, we want to look at what's really going on. What does the term really mean? And so I decided that I'm going to take up the reign and talk about it. This is something that I have a lot of experience with, unfortunately. And, bear with me. You may hear some papers crinkling tonight because I have notes everywhere. But I just want to express how important this is, especially to me. So if you hear me pausing, if you hear me get choked up, just bear with me. So of course, I'm going to first give you the Webster Wikipedia Google fact. A narcissist is an individual that is showing signs of narcissism. A narcissist is an extremely self-centered person who has an exaggerated sense of self-importance. A person that is fixated on themselves. An extremely self-centered person. That is what we want to hold on to. Self-centered. Because, everybody knows what self-centered is. We know that people that are self-centered only care about themselves, only care about issues that affect them. And so that is something that we understand. And so now you know that a narcissist is equal to a self-centered person. However, a self-centered person may not have negative tendencies like a narcissist will. A self-centered person may not be out to hurt someone. A narcissist? Yeah. Let's keep going. So my reply to the person, and it may have been one of my friends who said this, posted this on Facebook, but my inner reply to this was, the reason why we're using the term is because we don't know the term for the things that we've been exposed to. And that holds true for me. Speaking personally, I know that there are events that transpired in my life that I never knew were abuse. I know that there are events that transpired in my life that I didn't know can translate into trauma. And I know that, I've had interactions with some horrible people throughout my life, but I never knew, you sit back and you say, well, what makes that person do something like that? What makes some person treat me like that? And that's the way we'll try to translate it. But we never ever sat back to discover what the term is. And I can honestly say that a lot of things that I have learned over the past 16 years are because I have become so ill, and because I have been in therapy, and because I have been inpatient, and because I have, researched. But the average person won't know what the traits of a narcissist are. So that's why we need to start talking about it. Because shit, as much as a buzzword that it is, there are a lot of them out there. We see it every single day. We see it, listen, that man that was living in that house, the White House, yeah, he's king of them, king of the narcissists. So, of course we were just saying, he's out of his mind, or he's this, or he's only thinking about himself, or blah, blah, blah. But in reality, he was a narcissist. And so it's important, very important for us to start learning the correct terms for things, learning the traits, because that's important. And so narcissists are extremely abusive. Okay? Let me say that again. Narcissists are extremely abusive. They go out of their way to hurt people. They go out of their way to hurt people so they can take away from what's wrong with them. They hurt people. The term throw the rock and hide your hand? That's what narcissists do. Because they pride themselves on always looking good outside, but when they go home and they take off their mask, they are evil. And narcissists can cause extreme trauma in the people that they interact with. And as is the case in a lot of situations, we always tend to hurt the ones we love, or we always tend to hurt the ones that we have access to, or we always tend to hurt the people that we know can't fight back, or we always tend to hurt the people that we know we can get away with it, and I include myself in that. Listen, I'm not perfect, so there are situations where, of course, I know that I've contributed to some bad situations. I'm woman enough to admit that. Were they malicious? No, but it doesn't matter what the intent was. It just matters how it lands. And when a narcissist throws something at you, they want it to land on you. They want it to hurt you. And so this is a conversation that we have to have, because just like mental illness is a generational trauma, so is narcissism, so is domestic abuse, so is emotional abuse. I was watching a show, and the woman said, I thought domestic violence was physical, like hitting and stuff. I now know that there were other signs. And she was talking about, of course, somebody that she was dating. And because he hadn't hit her or hit her children, she didn't realize that she was being abused. And so we always have to step back and remember that emotional and mental abuse is abuse. Emotional and mental abuse coming from your parents is parental abuse. Emotional and mental abuse coming from your partner is domestic violence. And I can tell you this one little thing. In all the years that I was with my ex, he hit me one time. And I want you to know that that one time that he hit me was nothing compared to the emotional damage that he did to me. Because I have two brothers. I grew up in, one of the craziest neighborhoods in Brooklyn. So physical fighting, like I know how to, listen, you throw a punch at me, I know how to throw a punch back. I wasn't equipped for the emotional abuse. I wasn't equipped for the emotional manipulation. I wasn't equipped. So the psychological torture that I was being put through, I didn't know. And I sure as hell didn't know to call him a narcissist. I just called him a self-centered asshole. Like that's what we say, So we all know someone who is a narcissist. We all know someone who is self-centered to the point of destruction. We all know that person. Now, whether we want to name that person is a different story. Whether we want to believe that their intent is to hurt us, that's also a different story. Because you think, well, this is my partner, these are my parents, these are the people that created me. Shit, they're not supposed to be hurting me. But it happens. And so I want you to, after you finish listening to me, don't leave until I finish. But after you finish listening to this episode, I want you to sit back and I want you to start thinking about the people in your life and think about the people that have had a negative effect on you, and then see if they are people that you can put into that category. So I always thought that a narcissist was someone that was vain, always, looking in the mirror, always wanted to, look the best. That statue, remember the statue? I don't know if you paid attention to this growing up, but of course me. And there was a statue, the Greek statue, and it was called Narcissus. And that was the name of the person. And he was a Greek hunter who just knew that he was the most beautiful person in his world, and so he was always, he's just very vain, very concerned about vanity. The myth says that he fell in love with his own reflection. Could you believe it? He fell in love. He went to the river and he saw his reflection in the water and he fell in love. And he was convinced that he was just the best thing since baked bread. That's what we thought about. I mean, I remember reading about Narcissus in school, and that's what I knew, that it was just somebody that was vain. Or, now I'm going to be telling my age here. Y'all remember the Smurfs? You remember? I loved me some Smurfs. That was even my nickname to some people. But you guys remember Vanity Smurf? You remember? And all Vanity Smurf did was walk around looking at the mirror and telling himself how beautiful he was. He took that damn mirror everywhere. And that's what, so that was my experience with what narcissism meant. It meant vanity. And so I knew lots of vain people, I, I thought everybody was vain compared to me, because I wasn't in love with myself. I wasn't in love with my reflection. And so, what did I know? And so now here we are, fast forward, and just think about that. Think about that. Now, Narcissus, I believe, was malicious in some of his interactions. Vanity Smurf, not so much. He didn't want to help take over the fight against Gargamel. He didn't have time because he was looking in the mirror, but he didn't hurt anybody. Narcissists hurt people. So we can say that Vanity Smurf was a little self-centered, whereas Narcissus, he was a narcissist and he was intent on hurting other people. And so one of the first things that I want to talk about is the parental side. And you guys hear bits and pieces of me talking about my parents and some of the trauma that they have caused me and some of the pain and the hurt, but I've never gone in depth, and I'm not going to now. I'm gonna every time I talk about them, I share a little bit more, because I know that there are other people out there that went through what I went through, but I can tell you that I have not reconciled with what happened to me, and I have not made peace with what happened to me or the people that caused it. So I want to say this. Just because you speak out against what your loved ones have done to you doesn't mean that you don't love them. And it doesn't mean that you're being a nasty person. You're telling your truth. And it's important that we continue to share our truth, because I'm in my 50s and I sit down and I have conversations, or I'll be on TikTok or I'll be on Facebook or listening to something, and I hear the same pain that I have lived with in somebody else's voice. And I think to myself, if one person in my family from a prior generation, or even from my generation a little older, would have shared their truth, then maybe I wouldn't be suffering as much as I'm suffering now. So this is why I'm just gonna get into it. If you don't receive love from the ones who are meant to love you, you will keep looking for it. And your parents teach you how to love. Now, my parents caused a lot of trauma, and they subjected me to some interesting situations. And, it's tough, talking about the people who brought you into this world, because it starts to sound like you're ungrateful. And you don't appreciate being brought into this world. So before I start, I will say that I'm grateful. And my parents had my father passed away. My mother's still alive. My parents have their good points, good qualities. But the bad was bad. And so I knew that my father didn't like me from the time that I met him. I met him when I was 8 years old. So he's my biological father. And I have never, I met him when I was 8 years old, and he passed away when I was 50 years old. And so in those 42 years, I've never felt love from him. I never felt like from him. I never felt acceptance. I never felt any of that. My mother, when I was growing up, my mom was a single mom. And so I sort of packed everything away and just chalked it up to her being a single mom. And it wasn't until I started getting older that I saw that she wasn't that nice of a person. And so I had to face it. I had to face the fact that, my parents weren't nice people. And it's hard to accept that, and when I started researching the narcissism and what the narcissistic traits are in people, I said, holy shit, those are my parents. And then when I started to realize, and this was not until my hospital stay in 2018, that I realized that the narcissistic traits that they had, that they used to hurt me, was abuse, and it was trauma. And so, from the outside looking in, you would never know. I have people tell me to this day, you're lying. You're not talking about the same mother that I know. No, you're not telling the truth. When I heard people talking about my father at his funeral, I was like, I don't know who they're talking about. That's not the same person that, you just don't know. And you want to scream like, hello, those are not, no. So let's go over some of the traits of narcissistic parents. Narcissistic parents are neglectful. They neglect you. They neglect the needs of their children. They neglect to give the love that the child needs. They don't give care and attention to the child. They ignore them, basically. They take care of them enough for people on the outside to say, oh, you're such a wonderful parent. Oh, you're so lucky to have parents like that. But when the doors are closed, they don't see that I'm 7 years old cooking. They don't see that I got put on punishment and my father stopped talking to me for 2 months because I got a 75 on a test. They don't see that I'll say I'm hurting and my mother will say, oh, get over it. I get up and I go to work every day. Try being me. There's always that one up. The people don't see that. The lying, that's another trait. The constant lying to their child about their flaws and their mistakes and their failures. And it doesn't stop. It's ongoing. I remember when my father found out about my oldest daughter struggling with mental illness. And not only did he neglect to help her, he failed to help her, but it was my fault. What's going on? That, it never occurred to him that the way he treated me affected my mental health. And now she's struggling, but they lie. These two are the first people in my life to make me believe that I wasn't shit, because I could never do anything right. I was always being yelled at by my mom. The silent treatment, oh my goodness. We can do a whole episode on that. Maybe we will. But silent treatment, that is one of the highest forms of abuse. But those are the techniques that are used by parents. I am going to stop talking to you because you did something wrong. I am going to stop talking to you because you're not worthy. My father got a kick out of kicking me. You can't tell me that he didn't. He had this, talk about being in love with yourself. He was very much in love with himself. And add to that, he didn't like women very much. And here he was stuck with a daughter. So he got a lot of joy out of kicking me, especially when I was down. He was too good for me, and I don't know why my mom didn't see that, or, I don't know, but he felt he was too good for everybody. He really was Narcissus. He really was in love with his reflection. So hurting is another trait. I say all this to say that hurting your children is a form of narcissism. Punishing the child for pleasure, like I just said, he got a kick out of kicking me. Insulting your children at home or in public. Now, my mother would never insult openly in public, but there's always a little dig here and there. And my brothers and I, until this day, she will say something and it will trigger those memories of us growing up. And nobody around, everybody else thinks that we're going crazy. Well, what? She just said such and such. And we'd be like, you don't know what that means. You don't know how she's using it. My father used to like to make me cry or talk about things that I was lacking in front of my cousins. And like we would play Scrabble or we would play other games, and if I didn't know the answer, it was a joke. And listen, not to ring my own bell, but I'm a fairly intelligent person. But he went out of his way to make me look bad. What do you mean you don't know how to tell time? What do you mean, just anything. You don't know that word. What do you mean you didn't memorize the dictionary? But he knew he would do it in front of people that already had a problem with me. And then when other children see you doing that, then they feel that it's okay for them to do that too. And so the abuse starts to spread. But hurting your child, a narcissist likes to do that. Guilt tripping, that's self-explanatory. Of course, how dare you speak to me like that? How dare you say those things? Oh, are you trying to give me a heart attack? Oh, I did the best that I could. I raised you. You had clothes, you had food. How dare you? Y'all know what it is. Ignoring, dependency, making the child depend financially or emotionally. That's a whole nother Oprah show, y'all. As a child, who are you supposed to depend on? Your parents. So you get into a position where it doesn't matter what they do. You need them. Where are you going at 10 years old? Where are you going at 13 years old? You need them. At 16, I blew a fuse and I left my mom's house to go to my father's house. And thinking that, I don't know, but I just went from one shit show to another shit show. and came out of both a broken person. Manipulation. Listen, they use everything the child shares with them against them sooner or later. That's the last thing that I'm going to say about that. They have long memories, they have long memories, and they use it. They use it. And so you shouldn't feel like it's your fault. And I'm talking to myself too, because I'm still of the mindset that I did something to cause my parents to behave this way. And I'm sure that if you ask them, they would say, oh no, we loved her. We did what was best for her. Narcissism is such a harsh term, but it's not. And so we have to start believing that we didn't do anything to deserve this. We were just born. I have proof that my mom didn't want me. And I wish that she would have given me away to somebody else that did want me, because the pain is just something that I don't know if I'll ever recover from it. And so that's why I'm so loud about emotional abuse, psychological abuse, because it's just something that you can't just get over. It's something that is so hard to break. I was at therapy 2 weeks ago, and I said to my therapist, I'm tired of doing this. And I'm tired is my slogan. I tell everybody I'm tired. But I told her I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of taking medication. I'm tired of coming to therapy. I'm tired of, feeling like shit. But most of all, I'm so tired that all of this stuff that I do, I haven't healed. It's not like I'm going anywhere. And guys, this was emotional abuse. My parents didn't beat me. I don't know if my father ever laid his hands on me. And my mother, of course, you get a spanking when, you did something wrong. But I wasn't physically abused by my parents. But the psychological pain, it's going to last forever. And so, like I said earlier, if you don't know about love, you don't know what to look for. And so the next step is that you're going to end up dating somebody who's a narcissist. And like I said, I found out too late. I promise that I'm going to do an episode about relationships again in the future and talk a little more about it, and try to write a little bit more about it. But again, I stayed in a place where I shouldn't have stayed, and I subjected myself to behavior that I shouldn't have been subjected to. And I will honestly tell you that I was scared at some points. And if I knew then what I know now, I would have ran like fucking hell. But you don't know what you don't know. And so these are some traits that you have to pay attention to. And, of course, when it comes to dating is so complicated. You have so much that you have to pay attention to. But here's some big ones, very charming. Taking over the conversation. Let's just not forget the self-centered behavior and the being in love with themselves. If they're hogging up the conversation and they're like, oh, but I did, and but I did, and they don't give you a chance to shine, that's a red flag. Empathy. Narcissists don't have any empathy. They don't. They can't feel compassion. Check their friend history. Okay? Check the friend history. I'm not going to talk about parents again, but that's something that I can tell you. Both of my parents, the friendship thing. Yeah. If they are lacking friends, if they change friends like they change underwear, there's a problem. Again, here goes the picking on you, needling at your flaws, and it could be something so minor, the way you dress, the way your hair looks, that's a nice outfit, but such and such dress is better than you. Why don't you change your hair? Why don't you speak a different way? Everybody just wants to highlight your flaws. And if you can't have a discussion with them without always thinking that they're right, run. Just keep going. Just keep going. Because it's not going to change. And I know that we get into, we believe that we can change people. We believe people change as they grow, so on and so forth. They won't. They can't. You can't do it. And even if they can change, that's not your job to sit there and try to change them. I'm not going to speak for being in a relationship and discovering these horrible traits later on. I can't tell you to run like the wind, you're like me and had children, or, you think that longevity equals a good relationship and staying, and no, I can give you an example. I tell people all the time that I was a single parent living in a 2-parent household. And so everybody swore that I had the best partner in the world and that my kids had the best dad in the world. And they never knew that he didn't know their doctors' names. They didn't know that I did all the shopping for them. That if there was a choice between getting up and taking the kids out or taking a 2-hour shower and picking out the best outfit, and those were things that were important. How he looked outside, how he looked to the other women, how he looked to his fellas. Those are things that we have to be aware of. And listen, I'm saying he and him because I'm speaking for myself, but there's a long line of narcissistic women out there too. And so these are signs that both sexes need to heed, because it can have the same effect. Like I said, I have 2 brothers, and I know what a narcissistic woman did to them. So this goes every single which way. Just like mental illness knows no boundaries, and it knows no race, creed, color, gender, nothing. Neither does emotional abuse. Neither does domestic violence. Neither does physical abuse. Neither does something like narcissism. So pay attention, guys. I'm sorry for the pause, because I just don't know how much I can say pay attention, how much I can say get away. The parent side of it is much, much more complicated. But if you have the slightest inkling that this is a situation that you're in, then you need to get help. And that goes, listen, this, like I said, this started young for me. And you can be a teenager and listening to my voice. And if these are signs that you recognize in your parents or your caregivers, get help. If you're a teenager and you have a mate and you recognize these signs, get help and get out, because it's not going to change. It's not. You'll be love bombed. Oh, I didn't mean that, or I'll do right, or whatever. Bullshit. It's not going to change. They'll charm their way back in, manipulate their way back in. It's not going to change. And in the end, the only person that's going to suffer is you. And so the next time you hear someone saying that narcissism is a buzzword, tell them to go jump in a lake, because it's not a buzzword. It's just that we are finally, and we're not where we're at, where we need to be, but a lot of us are finally waking up to the reality that we were in situations that we shouldn't have been in, and in situations that have taken us down a dark path. And you can love people so much, but you can't change them if they don't want to change. You can't make them apologize if they're not going to apologize. I am 53 years old, and I'm still waiting for my mom to apologize. I'm still waiting for my mother to even acknowledge the things that she's done. I sat at my father's funeral hoping that, maybe somebody will stand up and say, oh, he loved you. They didn't even fucking acknowledge me at the funeral. Okay. When he first got sick, I sat by at his bedside, with him and held his hand. And, what was I looking for? I sat back afterwards and I'm like, did you think that, he was going to make a miraculous recovery and say, I love you? I don't know. But I know that this man who took so much from my soul, I was sitting there holding his hand, comforting him so he wouldn't die alone, or he would know that, I was there. And this is the manipulation. That's emotional manipulation. Every time I went out to make sure that they had cards and they had gifts but they wouldn't talk to me for months at a time. It's I'm going to stop stuttering and I'm going to just say that your homework, and I don't give homework, but I want you to research what a narcissist is. I want you to research what narcissism is. And I want you to Google, and this will come up, Google some celebrity narcissist. That's a good, that's a good term. Google people that are in the spotlight that are considered narcissists and see what their traits are. You can't call everybody a narcissist. You're right. You can't call everybody toxic. You can't. But you can call a whole hell of a lot of people a narcissist, and their narcissistic behavior is toxic, and it's toxic to the world, and it's toxic to you. It's toxic to your soul. It's toxic to your healing. It's toxic to your children. Think of what I unintentionally passed on to my children, just subjecting them to these three individuals, because I was too much of a punk to get out of these situations, or too much of a chicken to put up boundaries. Think about what I subjected them to. And if that one statement forces you to pay attention to what you're living with, then I'll share it all day. I'm not a perfect parent, so I'm not afraid to say that. I know that, my kids have probably got some shit going on because of some shit that they done seen, because of some shit that I was scared to get out of. That's just the honest truth. So take from me, learn from me. You hear me crying. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you see the pain, you see the tears. I'm not lying, y'all. This is some shit that will just take you to a place that a lot of people don't come back from. And so, do your homework. Remember, you're researching narcissist, you're researching narcissism, you're researching emotional abuse, and you're going to take notice of what's going on around you. If you need me to send you some notes, if you need me to share some of my reading material with you, please reach out to me, because I don't want you to suffer the same fate. I want you to feel like you're going to heal. I want you to feel like this is not going to break you. So just do that for me, okay? So I want to thank you. I know that I went a bit longer than I usually do, but this is something that sits on my heart, number one, and it's a constant conversation that I have with people that I know and strangers that I talk to every single day. And I felt that this is something that we needed to talk about, and I'm probably going to do it again and take it to the next level. So thank you if you listened this far. Sorry if you turned it off. But thank you for supporting me and for listening to me. I want to thank Illumination Media and Technology, as always, for helping me continue to push through with this podcast. So follow them, hire them. They're great. Listen to Breaking the Mask on most podcast platforms. I'm on there, most of them now. If you found this episode or any episode that you have listened to helpful, please pass it along. I don't do this for money, fortune, fame. I really want to help at least one person. So if this is something that touched something in you, share it. You might just save a life. And that's what we're trying to do. Make sure you head over to divawithdepression.com. Like I said, if you want some material or if you want to read, some of my blogs, head on over there. Say hi to me. I see so many of you supporting me and visiting my pages and my website, and I'm grateful. Say hi. I'd love to hear from you. I am extremely grateful. Extremely. I want you guys to stay safe. Our numbers are going back up with whatever. There's so many illnesses going around. Stay safe. Stay whole. Protect your soul and keep fighting. Please keep fighting, because I would miss you if you weren't here. Take care.